Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Charlie's and Coffee. We are a half hour later than our normal time. Have had a couple customer discussions that have come up and conflicted, but happy to report I am back in not so sunny San Francisco. But that means that I'm a little untethered from family obligations and will have more time to spend with you all. But that being said, um, wanted to give some updates about the company, talk about the product a little bit more, and talk about the playground. There's some interesting opportunities for those of you that are affiliates, as well as those of you that have been requesting lifetime deals for a while. So more important news to come. But first and foremost, to the company is doing great. We're seeing increased revenue traction. We're seeing a lot more traffic around the product, which is awesome. We are seeing quite a bit more excitement. I think part of that is me being able to be a lot more engaged as fundraising discussions are kind of getting in our rearview mirror. But that's also just the team renewing their focus on building products. I think we have some really incredible things coming down the roadmap, so stay tuned. Um, Thank you guys for your avid feedback about the editor, as well as going to a full chat-based interface. And then some of you have also been giving some great SEO commentary about how we can improve the blog writing capabilities. I find it interesting. Most of these SEO keyword research platforms are now creating AI content platforms, but to me, most of them that I've tried suck or are priced really terribly. So I continue to hone in on the fact that our tool is unlimited usage. You can do whatever you want with it. And we aim to be a all-in-one marketing platform. I think with the content repurposing capabilities where you can use anything as an input, it really opens up the amount of things that you can do with Charlie, especially when paired with the Command Charlie capabilities. So I think those two things are really going to expand what the product can do. Whether or not we bring that into the assistant interface so that anything is an input ingestion engine is a little bit of a different story. We're still working on that, but I think that'll be coming very, very soon. So for those of you that like chat-based interfaces, you may be excited about some of the things coming down the line. We are not going to get rid of the document editor at this point, so don't worry about that. But we will center a little bit more around how is it easier for you to interact with Charlie right out of the gate. So more importantly, on a couple other points for you guys to note. So one, I think the product itself it's been doing really well, but I think as we make Charlie replace more and more of our back end, the product itself will move faster. It will also likely be a little bit cheaper to run, and we hope to pass some of those savings along to people as well. So we'll keep you updated on that. But now today, since I have you, I wanted to kind of walk you through the playground. And I also wanted to do a quick walkthrough of the Command Charlie combined with image as an input. So we'll walk through those two things today. But before I get started, any questions from the audience? Cool. All right, so we're going to walk through those today. And then I'm going to plug one more time. We have Camp Charlie. We're going to do that towards the end of June. So if you want to discuss SEO, social media, affiliate marketing, any topic under the marketing umbrella where you use Charlie to assist you in creating, and you're willing to do a recorded session, we would love to have you on. The basic structure is going to be you'll have a 30-minute chat with myself, and then we'll have a chat about how you use Charlie in your workflows. I think what we're trying to do is make the community a place where we can all learn together. And so far, I'm driving a lot of the conversation, and I'm totally fine with that. But I want you guys to feel like you can share the way that you're using Charlie, share the way that Charlie is helping you do whatever it is that you're doing with Charlie. So if that's creating blogs, we want to know about how you're doing that. If it's creating social media content from those blogs, we want to know about that. So that's what we're trying to achieve with Camp Charlie, is really a week-long extravaganza where you guys get a whole bunch of information that you can then reference back to as new users get onboarded, but also for your own tutorials. Amanda, my glitter blazer, my brand voice blazer, I guess is now. It's been the launch blazer. It's been my sparkly blazer. It's now Brand Voice Blazor. We'll bring that back for another Charlie's and Coffee here in the future. But for now, let's. I'm staying a little less sparkly today. So let's hop right into this. I think this is screen. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So for those of you that haven't been to the playground yet, this is the playground. So there's a couple different components of it. First is this compare. And we'll talk about what that does here, but effectively compare is Charlie versus another model. And so it switches which model is in which bucket every now and again. But it's effectively a blind user test. So for those of you that are old enough to know what the Coke versus Pepsi challenge was, I certainly am. This is our version of that. So write me a blog about AI's impact on content creation. We do very simple prompting. You don't have to do crazy prompts if you don't want to. Feel free to do so. Charlie responds to a little bit more context. But what we're aiming to do with Charlie in the future is we don't want you to have to write these super complex prompts to get to the content that you need. We want Charlie to have your brand voice layer. We want Charlie to understand your business or your client's business, depending on who you're creating for, and be able to create information in that context such that the prompts can be super simple. Super simple. They leverage Charlie's capabilities and learnings already that he has. But then here we have all these nice little blogs that have been written. So this is awesome. And based upon the content that you see here, you can choose which one you want. So it's a really simple game. Go here. For those of you that have wanted a lifetime deal, Go Charlie, we are actually offering a select amount of lifetime deals to people that get over 1,000 in scoring of this versus that. We want people to use this model. We want people to check out what it does. And so to encourage that, we're giving out lifetime deals for anyone that scores over 1,000. You do not have to be a customer of Go Charlie to be able to access this anymore, but you still have invites in your instance of the playground. So if you want to share, go for it. There's Charlie version 3 is coming next month, so get ready for that. That's going to be pretty insane. But this is the this versus that thing. Another way that we could do this is write me a Instagram caption. And so you can see which one is going to be better. I kind of like emojis, so I naturally am on this side. But you can kind of tell which model is which, but not really. It depends on what you're doing here. But remember, Charlie can do up to 2,500 words as an output and up to 2,500 words as an input. But this is the this versus that screen. Then you get into the actual playground itself. So this is directly interacting with Charlie. So think there's no other models here, but there's a couple things. So one is temperature. So temperature is really variability. So we think an ideal temperature is 0.8, but if you want to really jazz it up, you can put it up to 1, get real crazy. Or if you don't want as much variability and you want a little bit more plain language, you can go closer to 0. Now, max length, this is, as we talked about, what's the length that we want on the outputs. This is particularly important for blogs, but maybe for social media, you want it to be shorter. Charlie ideally gets you to the right length, but this is just a way for you to kind of play around with the lengths of content that would come out. Stop sequence and bad words. Really, this is just making sure that there's not really crazy content coming out, or bad words is more for what are words I want to avoid. So you can put some words that you want to avoid into this box and he will do it. And then repetition penalties. So this is important for those of you that are doing SEO. Obviously, you don't want to repeat yourself too much because then your blog is just not going to read very well. So this is super simple, same as the other screen. Write me a blog about the impact of AI on content creation. Press Control and Enter. Or for those of you that are on Macs, I know you get pissed at me that I'm not using the Mac. Press Command Enter, and that will get it. And you can see in 5 seconds, we just generated all of this content, which is pretty incredible. Right here is where you can see the share button. So if you want to invite people, all you have to do is push it there and put an invite in. Really amazing way for you to be able to add people if you're sitting here and thinking, wow, I think other people need to see this. And then the last piece of the playground is the API key. So this is for people that want to build apps on top of Charlie, that want to build Charlie into different capabilities. This is a test instance, so make sure you're not building production level products on it just yet, but very soon we will also have an API available for you to be able to use Charlie in other places. So that's really the playground, but again, the offer we're making is for people to continue to rate and score content in this versus that. And if they reach over 1,000, we will give them a lifetime deal access to Charlie the product. So that's the playground. But let's jump into the actual product experience. But before I do that, I want to see if there's any questions. What is the okay? This versus that. Yeah. So quickly, what's the max output here? 2,000 is around the max output. How do you score? Can you explain how to populate stop sequence? Who can access the playground? All right, all great questions. So how do you score? Scoring is just rating. So if we go back into the actual experience here, screen two. Wow. Cool. So scoring is just rating. So if I say write a Facebook post about AI discussing its impact on creativity, so it'll generate, comes back with 2 different posts. So scoring, you just add a heart, and then it adds to your score down here. Your scoring's down on the right-hand side. The question about stop sequence. So stop sequence is not my specialty. I don't really use it, to be quite honest, but something that you can utilize if you want. And then the other question was, can you explain how to populate, or who can access the playground? Yeah, so customers that are paying customers can access the playground, but anyone can actually log in if they have the link now. So this is now available as more of a public beta of Charlie via the playground. So if you have people that don't want to pay for the tool just yet, they can come and use Charlie a little bit within reason. There are some limits on the upper bound, but this is a way that you could use Charlie in lieu of the actual product if you want to. This is great for people to just get their feet wet, but also we just want people to play with Charlie. So there's that. Now on the actual product experience itself. So we have all these capabilities that we talked through, but I wanted to do a quick overview then of brand voice creation, document changing, and then ultimately content repurposing with images and input. Because I really want to make sure that those things are understood, because we've had a couple questions about it. So we walked through brand voice a little bit yesterday in my impromptu go live, which hopefully you guys like that. I'm planning to do a lot more impromptu go lives as more meetings come off my calendar. But this is the brand voice screen for projects. Now you create the project name, create your brand name, you create your tone of voice. So your tone of voice doesn't have to just be one word. It can be descriptive. It can be fun and informative, but witty. That's kind of my styling, my personal styling. The company also is a little bit like that. Wonder why? It's probably because I'm creating much of this. But then your brand keywords, like this is how you would describe a brand. These are the words that you use for SEO. These are all the important aspects of what you want to be brought to life in the actual text itself. So these will be, think of these as like advanced inputs where they will be considered in everything that you create outside of certain parts of the platform, which we'll get into. Brand description. So think about this as like, what do I want my customers to aspire to? What do I enable through my product? Like this is where you can really get a little bit nitty gritty about what my brand does, what my brand's mission is, what my unique selling points are. That's where you can put that type of information. Then on target audience. So this one's extremely important because I've had people ask, if I put more than one target audience, is that going to make the results worse? The answer is not necessarily. I would advise that you have one target audience for each one of your projects. And the reason I say that, one, is because if you try to target too many audiences, your content is going to be too broad and it's not going to resonate with anyone. Now, I've done 3 people here because there's significant overlap in those 3 target audiences. So if you have target audiences like a digital marketer, SEO specialist, sometimes there's some overlap there. Sometimes they care about the same things. So for that, it's great. But what does target audience do? So target audience actually gives context to Charlie. This is super important. If you were working with a technology-driven set of audience members, they might interpret Apple as the company Apple. But if you're not talking to a tech-forward audience, they might think Apple is the word apple, like the actual fruit. Now I want an apple. But I think that's really how you need to be thinking about target audiences, like the language that is utilized, the way that the content is structured, the context for the definition of certain words is all driven by target audience and your knowledge of your brand. So make sure that you're identifying one target audience and only add multiple audiences if there's some overlap in between. So once you enter that, you add your preferred marketing content, you add your brand website, and Charlie learns from all these capabilities. Now, what does and does not consider brand voice? This is a very important point that I want to make sure that everybody understands. So what does consider brand voice is anything that you create with the inputs pane. So inputs and results, any of this considers brand voice. Anything in this pane, any social media wizard, any product that you are using in this pane considers brand voice. So if you don't want the information in your brand voice to be there, switch to a non-branded project. So I have a non-brand voice project and I have a brand voice project. Now, let's say that you have a non-branded project and you want to add a little bit of detail about your brand without it taking over things. What I've found is that the brand voice comes on very strong. So make sure that you understand that. But if you have a non-branded project, you can just upload your brand content as an input for content repurposing to get somewhat close to brand voice. It's not as precise, it's not as on brand, but it is a way to simulate brand voice if you want to use a piece of reference content. Now, where does Charlie not consider brand voice? So this is very important as well. First, any content that you create here, any of these functions like rewrite, write more, do not consider brand voice. So none of the rewrite or write more consider brand voice. The assistant also does not consider brand voice. So your project settings do not consider brand voice here. So just ensure that if you are working with the assistant, you're probably going to have to use a lot more advanced prompts than you want to try to simulate brand voice. Pretty good with additional context, but that's an important point. So anything in the normal set of features is going to consider brand voice, anything here. But anything that is in the assistant is not going to. That's a very important point. I'll say it again. Anything in the typical use cases and templates are going to consider brand voice. Anything in the assistant will not. So last point on the product that I want to make sure I clarified, because Eddie asked this earlier today, and I want to make sure that it works for everyone. But he asked, how do you switch between documents? So right now I'm in the brand voice demo project and I'm in my demo document. So let's say that I'm doing this project for a private jet transportation service, Tri-State Aero. This is in my hometown. So all I do is just click in and it will change over the document that I'm working on. What's important to note here is it will also change the project. So where you have documents across different projects, it will change the projects. So this is a really easy way where you can switch between brand voices. So maybe I switch into the brand voice demo, or maybe I switch into Tri-State Aero, and I already have this document. Well, all I do, create a new thing, and I can go straight into that different project. So it's really simple, but want to make sure that that works for people. Test it out. If it's not working for you, let us know. That might be a bug, but the way that you switch between documents is you just click in. There you go. So last piece here, many of you have said that a lot of your content from before the new UI was no longer available. The way that you access that is you can just search for it here. So if I said Christmas, Charlie will actually search for this. So I had a bunch of content that I created before Christmas. Basically what you do is you search for it and Charlie will be able to go back into your logs of all the content that you've created. And then you can actually pull that into the actual document version itself. So it takes a little bit of time, and it takes a little bit of time to load all these because they're all back in the database. But now I have all these Christmas Charlies that I created, and I can put them into my document as I need. So all of your content is still there. It's just a little tricky to go and find all of it. Just make sure that you're going back, clicking all this, and you can bring in all the Christmas Charlies and November Charlies and all the things that you know and love. So with that, I'll stop the product walkthrough and I'll address any questions that you all have. Cool. Is there somewhere in Charlie where we can get help to write that brand description? So yes, you can actually use the assistant. So I was experimenting with this yesterday. We're doing a session for SF Tech Week next week where we're helping people create their brand. And so if you are struggling with how I should populate those fields, you can go to the assistant and say, I am a coffee shop that doubles as a cocktail speakeasy. What should the name of my brand be? And he'll come back with names. And then you can select the name that you want and say, hey, can you describe a brand profile for this business? And he'll actually come back with a very lengthy brand profile. He'll talk about the visuals, he'll talk about the values, he'll talk about what the company should sell. It's meant to be that assistant for helping you formulate those things. So Charlie can actually create a brand voice for you. He can create all those inputs that you then put into the projects itself. It's a really fascinating way to use the assistant. I'll do a session on that particular piece here shortly, but it's really fascinating how Charlie can actually address many of those capabilities. It can make Charlie write like, hey, digital marketers, yes. Unlimited brand voices, we do have unlimited brand voices. So at the project level, you just click in, create your brand voice. Make sure you set it as active, because I find myself not doing that all the time, but it's very important. You need to set that as the active project for it to consider that brand voice. Think of it as like a spaceship, and you're taking another spaceship and landing it into it. You have to make sure that you activate that brand voice for it to be considered. Got it. Yeah, thank you for that comment, Amanda. Cool. So that's the majority of what I had for today. So to summarize, we talked a little bit about the playground. We talked a little bit about brand voice, how to create it. We talked a little bit about content repurposing. We talked a little bit about some of the capabilities of moving around your content library. I think this is we're moving in the right direction. We got a whole bunch of new products and projects coming up to help enhance the platform more. But if there's anything again that you guys need, we're always here. So another question here: with a whole bunch of tools bringing add your own API setting, there's nothing we have to worry about, right? Competition wise. Also, is there a way to integrate Google search into the responses? So I'm not sure I understand the question entirely. There's nothing we have to worry about competition wise. I'm not quite sure what you mean there. If you're meaning like, do we have to worry about tools that use OpenAI's API and bring your own API key? Not really. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. We've developed our own model, and so long run, we're going to have a better model than what's going to be available to them. If the API key model is what you guys are thinking is going to save you cost, I actually think it's not going to do that in the long run, but we're going to be adjusting pricing in the somewhat near future based on the savings that we're going to get from Charlie. So hold tight for that. But the second piece, is there a way to integrate Google search into the responses? So we already have Charlie, the researcher in the background. He goes out to the internet and looks at that information on a given topic. So I'm not sure what Google search would do versus this, but Google is also doing a whole bunch of really wonky stuff with AI assisted search. So they're kind of closed walled about some of their APIs. So we're using something that's a little bit easier to navigate from an API perspective, but still is powerful. Awesome. Well, great. Thank you guys for the time today. There will be more video tutorials coming. There's going to be more walkthroughs. If there's anything you want to see a walkthrough for, feel free to do so. I was under the impression no one wanted to watch an hour-long tutorial and walkthrough of a platform, but I am going to record one because that's what everybody said that they want. I think there's a lot of capabilities that may be buried in the platform, and we want to make sure that you know how to use all of them. But with that, thank you for your questions. And as always, thank you for joining me on this lovely Friday morning in San Francisco. More to come. Talk soon.